I once asked a wise woman, what would time be if it didn't have a name? She simply said, infinity. You gaze upon the nighttime sky, and the darkness compels you to dream. With visions of reaching great heights, you close your eyes and imagine drifting through space and time, landing on worlds not yet visualized. Each maneuver reveals an enigmatic portal. Advancing only creates a challenge that you rarely accept. You ponder your differences, you marvel at your gifts. You realize success is waiting through the darkness, and then you proceed into infinity. I give you that wise woman. Welcome to a new edition of the Sanaa Experience. I'm here today. I'm Nathaniel Rhodes, and I want to welcome to our stage a fabulous vocalist. Her name is Mina. How are you, Mina?
I'm fine. How are you? It's good to be here.
Oh, what a smile. I was fortunate enough to work with you during your experience as, you know, an up-and-coming vocalist. And we're trying to get the word out as far as you in the Pittsburgh area. Just give the listeners or the viewing audience where you're from and a little information about yourself.
Well, I'm from Canton, Ohio.
Okay.
Born and raised there. And I had wanted a singing career since I was very young. But as most people can, you know, through their experiences, they end up doing something else other than what their life dreams are.
Mm-hmm. So how was it in your childhood growing up?
Believe it or not, I was actually a tomboy. So
A tomboy, come on now.
yeah, I really was.
That's hard to believe. You up a tree?
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. But I was surrounded by music because my mother loved music. She played music all the time. My grandfather, he sang with a group and he traveled on the road. My mother's mother was a fantastic vocalist as well. So you are always hearing gospel. You know, I think most people always say that they were brought up on gospel.
Yes.
And so was I, because I spent a large percentage of my time in church, which I'm not complaining, but those were long days. And of course, you were in choirs and children's choirs, and that's where I started, children's choir.
So being a child vocalist, that kind of separated you from other kids, didn't it? How was it growing up in your high school, your grade school? What was that about?
Well, you know, because of the music aspect of it, I have a sister who also sings. And, you know, everybody had to have a singing group when they were growing up. And
Doo-wop?
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we used to sing together. But the one thing that I remember the most was when I was in 6th grade, I had a music teacher. Her name was Mrs. McElroy. And she would start off every class with me singing a song.
Okay.
And she said to me one day that I should pursue singing as a career. But when in those times, singing wasn't a career that most people were successful in. You know, it was almost like football players. Yeah, you know, only the best or the luck of the draw, you happen to catch an eye.
If you said you were a singer, it was almost like being ridiculous. It's like, well, go somewhere and sit down, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I ended up not pursuing music, although she said that. And I continued to sing in church and in groups and at programs and those kind of things. But that was the extent of it.
So where was Miss McElroy located? I mean, what school was this?
This was Allen Grade School.
Oh, okay. So way back.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
You know, 1st grade, you know, kindergarten through 8th grade.
So how was the experience then? I mean, the times are kind of difficult back in grade school, weren't they?
Well, at that time, because there was a lot of prejudice at that time, and those kind of things. But I think for the most part, my parents did their best to kind of shelter you from some of those experiences. So I had a very good, childhood in perspective. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, the music part of it was always something that you always heard. I mean, you could walk down the street and somebody was playing music or somebody was dancing. That back in that time, they used to have street parties.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I remember those. Okay, rent parties, everything. You're trying to survive. Yeah. Oh,
yeah. You would block off the street. Somebody whoever had the best music set up, they would put the music out and just block the street out, and we would just have they'd barbecue ribs and all that kind of thing, and we'd just have a great time. So that's when the little singing groups, everybody could get up to the microphone and sing their song.
Do that thing, huh?
So I became pretty well known that I had a good voice back at that time.
But I know it just wasn't all singing and dancing. What were your parents like? Were they strict? How were they?
My parents were very strict.
Okay.
Both of my parents are from the South.
Yeah.
My father grew up in the city of Bessemer, so if you consider at that time the size of the city, but he was also in World War II.
What was his first name?
Price.
Yeah. Okay.
And my mother, she grew up on a farm. So my grandfather, fortunately, he owned land. Mm. And so he had a full-fledged farm up and running with everything, cows, pigs, horses, mules, cotton. He grew cotton, sugar cane, all that.
I had similar experiences.
Did you?
Yeah, that's where I learned how to work. Man,
so did I.
They sent you down there, man. It was 4 in the morning or else, okay?
Yeah.
You were on it. But tell me more about Price.
Well, he only got an 8th grade education. So we were not allowed to bring a C from school.
No C's?
No C's. C's were unacceptable. It was either A or B.
Wow.
He wouldn't have anything less. He said because he did not get an education, he wanted to make sure his children did. And there were 5 of us. I had 5 children. And my mother, she did graduate. And I mean, it was totally different for both of them because my mother came from a background that they had scholars in the family. They had principals, so they were already educated.
Yeah, your mother's name is?
Mary.
Oh, okay. So, man, if we could just transfer some of that philosophy to today's times where, you look at how kids are squandering free education. Half of them don't show up to class, and it's like, what's going on with y'all? If you really, at your age, what you could do when you get to somebody like my age, because I'm self-educated, and, I went to public school, but I do so many things with my mind and visions, just to hear what your father has said, that you wasn't supposed to bring home in a seed, that means the world,
It does. You have to always have the bar high. People used to, especially girls, they used to say you were sedity or you were uppity, and they find it unusual because I'll just give you an experience of what my mother wanted us to experience. She wanted us to, my sister and I, there were 2 girls and 3 boys. She wanted us to be ladies. And that's one of those things, like even now, she wouldn't accept anything less. Every day, when we came home from school, she actually made us walk across the room with books on top of our head for our posture.
What?
We were not allowed to slouch in a chair, even at the dinner table. At the dinner table, you couldn't sit with your back all the way to the back of the chair. You had to sit straight up. And because she said that's important, and not only that, it's good for your body. So it was just things like that you would think the smallest things. I always held my head up right. My father used to always say, never look down for nobody. Always look up.
Well, I had a similar experience to say, never go to the back. Always go to the front. Why would you sit in the back? You ain't hear nothing.
Right.
You want to get it firsthand. So be the first up front and take in what people have to say.
Yes.
That was mine. And the work ethic. My parents, 3, 4 jobs and never stopped. And I guess growing up, I mean, you never know what being disadvantaged is as long as you saw the action of, providing for a family. You know what I'm saying? And again, with your mother, if we could transfer some of that to some of the females today, walking around with 20 tattoos and, dragging their shoes, the shoes run over. You see that? And the language. Oh, my God. So tell me more about school. When you moved on from grade school to...
Well, when I went to high school, I went to a vocational high school because I wasn't sure at that time whether I wanted to attend college. And so I went to a vocational school because that was designed to put you right into the workforce. So I wanted to be an accountant.
What?
I always liked math, believe it or not. That was one thing. I can count a little bit. I can count my money.
Oh, see, that's what first 1, 2, 3.
Right. But that was a different experience because where I grew up, we had a lot of different backgrounds. We had all different races and creeds and religions, but amazingly, we lived so peaceful together. Nobody did anything to anyone. And then when I started high school, I actually ended up in a situation where it was primarily Caucasian. And it wasn't the best experience for me, but because of the goal of the school, it was a school that was known for quality education, so it was not easy. You had to take a test in order to even be accepted in the school. And my sister and I both, went to that school, and we did get a great education. I give you that.
What was the name of that school? And
it was called Timpkin Vocational High School at the time.
And you and your sister or your siblings were some of the first African Americans at the school?
There were African Americans before us.
Okay.
But we were very small in numbers.
Oh, okay. And how did the teachers treat you?
There were a few that you could really consider to be very understanding. But I had some bad experiences as well. But it never did get in the way of them educating you, though. I mean, they may not have seemed very happy, some of them.
Yes.
But for the most part, I mean, you weren't that uncomfortable that you didn't feel that you should be there. But again, I think that part of it as well was a good experience because the more things that you encounter in your life, more things that you have to draw upon so that you can do better. And it helps me to educate others.
That's another drawback I get with young people. They come at you with all the knowledge in the world because of the internet and everything, but I say you haven't seen as much or experienced as much as somebody who has lived. I mean,
without a doubt.
Yeah, you sit there and you want to be down on people, but if you haven't went off the block, as they say, how are you going to tell anybody about an experience? You saw pictures of it? Oh, come on. So, I see what you're saying. So, in this vocational school now, were you singing then?
I was in plays, and they had a choir.
Oh, okay.
And yes, I did sing in the choir. So, that was fulfilling. But all along I was still singing in church, and I did plays in church, in school as well. So that's where I kind of got the bug